Welcome. My name is Tracy Stevens, and this is the Healing Point podcast. Thank you so much for joining me today. It's really lovely to see you and to talk to you. I can't wait to hear what it is that you want to explore. So I'm going to hand over to you and let you speak.
Thank you for having me and listening. I've noticed a few different health things that I'd like to work on, but I think the one thing that I've been working on the most in this last year and a half is I have a hypothyroidism. And I know you've done a podcast about that, and I've gotten, takeaways from that for sure. But about a year ago, I was also diagnosed with Hashimoto's, and that is new to me. And I've probably had that for a couple of decades. I'm 65, and I've probably known about the thyroid maybe since I was in my mid-30s, early 30s. And so the two kind of can go hand in hand, it seems to me. I just learned about the Hashimoto like a year ago. I'm working with a functional medicine person. So anyway, I found some good changes by changing up my diet. I retired early and I started teaching meditation, and it's super funny how things just kind of land in your lap. I'm not a teacher by trade, although I do have 3 daughters. I love teaching, that comes naturally to me. I can see why that meditation kind of landed in my lap, why I got certified to teach, because I've gotten a lot of benefit for myself out of that work. But I need to go further. And so that's why I'm here. And I will tell you this too. I'll share this. I've got 5 brothers and sisters. One brother, kind of abrupt, but he took his own life. This was probably 30 years ago. So there's 4 other brothers and sisters, and we've all got some form of thyroid issues. My father left our family unit of this mother and 6 children when I turned 12. So many years ago. He's deceased now, and we never really saw him after he left. So I'm certain that childhood trauma plays a significant part in this.
Okay, well, let's start as I always start, really, which is tell me what it feels like in your body to have this thyroid condition. So hypothyroid, which you've had for a long time, and now the diagnosis of Hashimoto's. Like you say, it's probably been there for a long time. So yeah, what's it like for your thyroid not to be working as functionally as it could be?
Yeah, I'll be honest, I didn't pay too much attention to it. It didn't really come knocking at my door, so to speak, until I retired. And I've been retired for about 7 years. If I could give you one thing that I would complain about myself, and I try not to complain about myself, but I would say that I'm tired. And it's a weird kind of tired. I go about my day. I'm extremely active. I work out. I took care of 3 children on my own. I've worked full time, whatever. But this is the kind of tired where you wake up in the morning and you don't feel completely rested, and yet you slept all night. You never woke up. And so when I retired, I sleep a lot. I sleep whenever I'm tired. I'm tired a lot. So I literally go to bed at 9 o'clock at night. I probably don't get up until 8, maybe 9 o'clock in the morning. And I'm talking wake up. I thought because I retired and now all of a sudden I had time, that's when I started noticing how much I sleep, how tired I am. All of a sudden, when I retired, I kind of stopped working out after COVID, when the gyms closed and everything. I never really got back into a routine. I do walk regularly every day outside, but I don't do anything like weight worthy. I've had vertigo a couple of times. So I had about probably in 2022, maybe for the first time. And that was very scary. And I don't know why I knew what it was, but I knew what it was. And then I had a bout of it in January of this year. And it was very violent and it was racking, like it racked me. It scared me. And I will be honest to say, I'm kind of fearful of it almost every day. I like can never get that vertigo again. And the one thing I noticed is I had a little crackling in the ear, might be crystal related. It kind of felt like you're a little kid and you swim and you get water in your ear, whatever. And so whenever I have that little crinkling in my ear, I immediately flip the script and go right to that vertigo fearfulness. Tend to carry a lot of fear from like that. Then I worry I'm going to watch grandchildren and what if I would get dizzy or lightheaded or, couldn't care for them properly. That kind of starts eating at me. I have noticed I carry a lot of fear about different things like that.
I often find that when fear comes up, it's not because it's new, it's because it's always been there. Let's just hold that fear part just to one side for a moment because I think that's so relevant to so many things. The vertigo for me is about it's the instability. And it's sort of as you're speaking to it there, it's that, oh, fear, what if I can't do this? And what if I can't do that? Because all of a sudden you feel unstable.
Hmm.
Instability suggests to me that there's something quite deep there that is really related to who you are, if that makes sense, and where your foundations lie. So there's that piece. And so lack of flow, tiredness, instability are all pointing me towards some deeper issues that may be going on below the surface. Maybe things that, haven't come up before for you, like the fear potentially, but are now starting to show themselves to be asked for healing. Anyway, first of all, how does that resonate with you?
It resonates really well. And I will say too, I've been fearful. Oh, my whole life. I can tell you when I was 5, and I don't have a lot of childhood memories, but I remember being 5 and standing at the bus stop, getting ready to get on the bus. I was going to kindergarten. I can tell you what I was wearing. I can tell you what the weather was like. And I did not want to get on the bus. And I was crying, and my mother was pushing me on the bus, and I ended up getting on the bus. And so that was my first fearful moment. And I can tell you a whole bunch more from the age of 5 to 65. It's not normal. Yes, there's something deep within.
I wouldn't say it's not normal because I think it's normal for so many people to carry fear,
Okay, that's fair. Yeah.
and because our generational history comes from like traumatic places, really, of, our ancestors being destabilized, being oppressed, being separated, having lack of connection, wars, oh, you name it, oppression, women being, I mean, our generational links are so strong that I think fear sits in the majority of people and acts as a
Right.
driving force or a stagnating force to prevent people moving forwards. And so, yeah, I would say it was almost entirely normal in the age of evolution that we're at as human beings. Can I just ask you about, just go back to the thyroid for a moment, because you said that you feel like it's been there for a long time. So when you say that, do you mean that the tiredness has been there for a long time?
The tiredness has been there, probably some weight gain.
Okay.
And now that I'm really paying more attention to my diet and I'm cooking more, I've lost quite a bit of weight and I feel good in that regard. A lot of bad eating patterns that I'm unraveling, you know. So cranky, maybe moody, like I'm snappy. I'm critical, maybe moody.
With that moodiness, so let's just say there's emotions coming up. What's behind the snappiness?
Well, that's a really good question. The first thing that came to my mind was I always want to be right, which I'm not really quite sure that's true, but that came up to my mind right now. Maybe having a voice.
If you were to name a an emotion or a feeling,
The word that came to my mind right away was anger. As I say it, I get goosebumps through my body. So,
yeah,
that resonates with what we're talking about.
how does it feel to say that out loud?
A little restriction in my
Mhm.
throat, like in my voice.
Okay, you see where we're going with this.
Yeah. Yeah. Isn't that interesting?
Isn't it fascinating? Yeah. Here's a question for you that's just a little bit deeper. What's your relationship with anger like? With other people's anger or your own anger?
Well, so I think of anger, I think of like it's hot, it's heated, it's confrontational, and I'm very much a flee person. Like I will flee. I will run as faster than you've ever seen anybody run. So I try not to move into those areas. I don't try to get involved in your anger and I don't try to be angry. And here's something interesting too that I feel is coming up is that I think I've suppressed like my anger, at different times in my life to not be in those states of hot conflict. I'm not a good debater. So for you and I to debate, like I would just end up looking like I was mad, which I suppose I would be.
I recognize that in myself as well. Yeah, I don't want to debate. You have your opinion, I'll have mine. That's fine. But there is something in that in the holding back, isn't there? Or the non-expression. What if there's a time when you really need to stand up for yourself, or you really need something to change, or you really need to put a boundary down? Because sometimes anger is really useful for that and to state your passion for things.
I feel like I'm just really paying attention to what comes to my mind right away as you're talking and we're talking. And I feel like I've never gotten to use it in the correct way or, be it, so to speak, in the correct way. It's a learned behavior, right? To move through those stages, and especially when something really traumatic happens, like, you know, we didn't talk about it. We didn't do anything about it. My mother told us my dad wasn't coming back. And like three of the little kids cried because they were little. And her going through her own thing, I think just like putting food on the table and getting us off to school was probably all my mom could do for a certain period of time. So helping children move through the different stages of grief and just how to process.
And if we just go back to that anger that comes up, maybe, occasionally now, present day life, and if we made it into a person, that anger is make we look at it as a person. It's how welcome is that person into your house and into your life.
I don't think they're very welcome at all. It's funny when you were saying what would anger look like, or I don't know what the words were, but I literally had a visual of, I don't know if you know this character, but on Charlie Brown, there's one of the children is like dirty all the time.
Yes, I know. Yeah.
Okay. And like there's little like Sputniks kind of coming out him or around him or whatever. Like literally, that was what I saw. It was very visual. The anger was very energy oriented or whatever.
Yeah. And it is.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think it's welcome. And it happens quickly, you know? And if I'm being fair and honest, I would say if I do snap, it's like kind of a Jekyll and Hyde. It's like a snap, anger, brr, and then everything's fine. Like, what will the neighbors think?
And it's interesting because it comes out like a spike. It comes out spiky, doesn't it? The snappiness.
Mhm. And interesting, like I've noticed this about myself for sure in the last year, I'm very emotional. You can't watch the news, I'll start crying. Like, I'll read something, I'll start crying. Like, I cry a lot. And I feel almost like there are two ways of releasing the anger and this crying, but they're kind of on opposite ends. And maybe they're not, but it feels like one's doesn't feel good. And the crying part for me, it kind of bothers my husband, but he thinks there's something emotionally wrong with me. Well, maybe there is, but but I'm looking at it as a release. And
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything wrong with my crying. But I bet I cry every week about something.
Okay.
Just a few tears, a little Kleenex to dab the tears. The
Yeah.
tear thing came into my mind when we're talking about the anger.
Well, yeah, exactly. So they're both releasing, aren't they? And one's more uncomfortable for you than the other. So I'm just going to reflect back to you what you're saying, like, the anger comes up and goes in again, you know, and almost beyond your conscious control, or it sounds like.
Yes. Snappy, bursty.
Yeah, okay. So these are things that your body wants to express. You have an angry part in you. You have some little part of you that wants to pop up and go, ah, whatever that thing is. Why are you doing it that? Why are you filling the dishwasher that way? I don't know. And you also have there's a part that is so sensitive, feels the sadness of whatever that is, that whatever that thing is that has triggered the sadness.
Yeah.
So let's just look at these as different parts of you. An angry part in one place, a very sad part in another place. Now, these parts of us aren't disappearing in between times. They're still very much in our body, wanting to express. You mentioned your childhood and your dad leaving, and what will the neighbours say? Was it a secret that your dad had left?
Oh, I remember never talking about it. And I remember even in like seventh grade or whatever, you'd have like the end of the school play or whatever, where all your parents come and whatever. And I would tell my friends that my dad was out of town working because he did travel a lot. Oh, yes, it was a huge, big secret for me. I'm not sure about anyone else in my family, but I never talked about it. And I do remember being on the school bus, and there was a girl that told us there was no Santa Claus. She was the same girl that said very loudly, well, your dad left. He left your family, or something like that. I was very humiliated. Not even embarrassed, like humiliated, where you shuffle off and your head is down. And whatever. And I don't remember anybody even saying anything, and I'm not even sure why it came up, but she said something. So calling me out on the secret for sure.
Yeah. And isn't that interesting that you felt the need to hide the fact that your dad had left and you took on the shame? Or what shame was there? You know, why do you think a 12-year-old would hold that responsibility for keeping that a secret, holding it in?
I don't, the only thing that keeps coming up is my mom saying, what will the neighbors think? Like everybody needs to be on their best behavior all the time. And if you're not clean and neat and smiling and playing together really well,
Suppose what all I'm doing is just reflecting back the enormity of that emotion, holding it in. And this is not about blame. This is just about your experience and how you were then compromised in the way that you could express yourself.
right?
What would the neighbours think? So we all have to be, you know, fitting into this box that makes everything very, very comfortable for everyone else.
Right.
It sounds like suppression was a really good way of let's hold it all in and all look shiny to the outside world.
Hmm.
So the question then becomes, what do we do with all the emotional stuff, the emotional energy, like you've already said about the anger energy, the sadness, the sensitivity? What do we do with all of that energy?
I think back in the day, I would make myself busy. I would take on projects. I would do more with my children. I would do more with work. I would do more, be more. You know, my kids, we kind of laugh about it now, but they went to college and they didn't know how to do laundry because I did the laundry. You know what I mean? Those kinds of things. If I look back on raising my kids and if I was snappy and moody or whatever, it's easy to blame it on, well, it's only me cooking the food, mowing the lawn, whatever, blah, blah. And you never think of it as it's ruining your health.
I'm wondering, there's a few things that are coming up as you're talking that may or may not relate to your thyroid issue, but the taking it all on, the being busy, the having no support or the lack of support, the being independent. You know, when you start to pile all that responsibility up, it's it's really heavy.
It is heavy. I can feel the heaviness. That actually, that would be another thing that I feel. You were asking how I felt, and I was saying tired and moody and whatever. I feel heavy. And I feel like I'm carrying a lot around.
What you've been carrying has been accumulating, and it sort of feels like it's leaking out at the seams.
For sure, that makes sense. Yes, it does. Like I can feel that. I, I can feel it. And the leaking, like, so we talked a little bit before we recorded here about my sinuses, and I've got, you know, just snuffy nose, and you think it's seasonal allergies, but my eyes water. That would be one of the sinus allergy symptoms or whatever, eyes watering. So there you go. There's more bursting at the seams, you know.
Yeah, more leakage, more stagnation in your body because it's not moving out.
Oh, this little body wants to release.
It does. Holding, holding the responsibility, the shame, the past. You mentioned your brother in when you spoke at the beginning, moving just, you know, just moving through that loss as well as, you know, your dad leaving. You probably had a way of coping with that, I'm sure. Holding in the anger, holding in the tears because other people don't like it very much, think there's something wrong with you. If you become too emotional, goodness knows what was going to happen to everybody if we'd all become too emotional. Start releasing and expressing. And you think all that while your thyroid has been trying to manage your metabolism. And I think of the thyroid as a bit like an accelerator pedal. So chugging along and putting the fuel in the car, carrying on. But quite often that whole movement forward and the balance of the fuel and the speed of the car and the maintenance of the car gets really out of balance. Our vehicle gets really out of balance because we're putting that we're going to keep going, we're going to keep going, we're going to keep going, we're not going to stop for maintenance, we're going to keep going until the car just starts to slow down and starts to go.
Oh, it sits with me really well. And that first time I ever had vertigo, I'm very, mindful. I'm like listening to myself. And the word balance came up. And I thought that was very odd at the time because I had a lot of time in my life. I wasn't working. And so I do have time to balance seeing my daughters, seeing my granddaughters, going on little dates with my husband, having time for myself. I'm very good at taking time for myself. And so I couldn't figure it out, but that word balance, like literally I'd open up my email in the morning and the subject in the first email I saw would be balance. And I'd be like, Lordy. So I did at that time start to really pay attention to, was I really balancing parts of my life?
Yeah, absolutely. And we often look at this idea of balance as work-life balance, and I'll take more time for me and I'll rest a little. But really what balance is this deeper level of understanding what you believe about life. And that's where we find the roots and the change that we could make to our beliefs that will actually have an effect on us biologically. Because what do you believe about the vertigo?
Not sure if belief and feeling are the same, but it was debilitating. And it was interesting how it came about the second time. Like I was cooking breakfast. My husband was right there and I felt it in my solar plexus, not my sacral area, but my solar plexus. And I felt this heat, literally, and it just moved up the front of my body. And I knew immediately what was happening. It was so surreal. And I turned the stove off and I pushed the pan. I was making breakfast, I said. And I said to my husband, I think I've got vertigo. I need help. It was very violent, so attacking. And it was scary. And it was scary for my husband.
There's the point. It it felt attacking because you felt fearful. So you're in this place of this is happening to me and I have no control.
So this is super interesting. We were actually in Arizona. We live in the Midwest in the United States. And for the last 8 years, we have spent winters in a warmer state. In the last probably 2 or 3 years, I don't want to say I haven't been happy to go there, but I haven't really been super excited to go there. It's 4 months. You're not going to the VRBO for a week vacation. You're going somewhere to live in somebody else's house, with somebody else's linens and pans and not your own and whatever. like I felt this vertigo was somehow related to that. And now the more we talk, second marriages are funny. There can be super good components about it. And yet Tom's a little bit older than me. This was his idea of retirement. It really wasn't mine. And we really never talked about it. It just kind of organically happened. We went down there for a week 8 years ago, and then we went down there for a month, and I was working, he was retired. So I would just go visit, and then I retired and now I'm there for 4 months. Like it's a huge, big commitment. And I've spent a lot of time nurturing my relationships with my daughters and my grandchildren. I feel like that's super important to me, and girlfriends. Anyway, there's something there too. It's fearful. Maybe it's fearful to be gone all that time. Will people forget me? Will my grandkids still remember their Grammy? Like,
Yeah, I was bringing awareness to that. And I was just thinking how interesting that it came on so quickly. So you were in the kitchen cooking breakfast. I mean, you'd obviously done all this clearing, cleaning up, and you were stood there making breakfast. Can you remember what you were thinking about, or is that not available to you?
well, so this is kind of interesting, and it probably isn't going to matter to anybody here but me. But I like to take the casing off my sausage.
Right.
And this was sausage. I'm in a different state now, so I'm buying different kinds of food and whatever. I couldn't take the casing off the sausage, like it was not coming off. So I was a little bit annoyed by that. And I did love this house, but it needed to be really deeply cleaned. So for 3 days, that's what I'm doing. And I'm a weirdo. I like to clean. So, but I think I was annoyed, cleaning somebody else's stuff. And I think by day 3 or 4, the sausage thing, I think it just kind of threw me over the loop. Maybe now I could say, I don't know that I would have said this in the moment, but I think it had to be something so violent like that for my husband to take notice. And he might not put the pieces together of what we're talking about, but in that moment, he was frightened. He was for me. And he was afraid. He told me this later, that he would wake up in the morning and I would be gone. I would have came home. And I was shocked by that, because I was actually kind of excited to be there this year, because I had set up, different things for myself to do and whatever.
And so if the vertigo that came on so suddenly and so violently had a voice, what do you think the voice would have been? What would have been the shout, the battle cry, if you like, from the vertigo? What would it have said?
The words coming to my mouth are, I can't do this anymore. And I think when I say that, I'm thinking about, like, my voice is saying, anybody else might think it's about that very moment, but it's about a lot of stuff. And, I can't do this anymore. Like I get a little teary.
Good. Well, allow it to come. Let's just be with the emotion that's coming up right now. What's happening in your body?
I can feel like my heart center is a little tight. And I'm very aware of when I get like this. I just do a little bit of tapping on this space.
Well, let me just interrupt you 1 second, because is there something there that you don't want to feel? Is there some resistance? You want that tapping so it'll go away, or I can distract from it?
So this is super interesting too. So what came to me now is, like, all those 8 years. This is the first year where I've been saying this is my husband's idea of retirement and not mine. It's the first time I've really been vocal. And not that I haven't been vocal. For sure, he knows that, it's not my favorite thing to do is live in somebody else's house for 4 months. But I don't think until this year, like, he noticed, because he sold his golf cart and he sold his golf membership last month, and we're not going back. And I'm flabbergasted. because I've never asked for that. That was a decision all on his own, and it was the right decision.
Well, he's felt it.
He did feel it.
He did feel it, but the words weren't spoken. So as we're talking, does it make sense to you that the voice has been leaking out, that your body has been speaking for you?
Yes. Oh, wow.
There's one final piece here that because you said at the beginning that you've recently been diagnosed with Hashimoto's. And I just wanted to just bring this round together, to be honest, because when you've got the diagnosis of Hashimoto's, it's because they found antibodies in your blood, isn't it?
Yes. I will tell you, I can lay in my quietness and sometimes I can feel my body battling itself inside. It's weird.
No, I understand that because I have autoimmune issues and have resolved some autoimmune issues. So I understand the feeling that's inside and the feeling of this inflammation, this battle going on. And that's why I wanted to just bring attention to it before we finish, because it is an internal battle. And there's some conflict there that is asking for attention.
Hmm.
And it's one part of you versus another part of you. And I just wanted to bring attention to it because what that tells me is that you're coming or are at a particular edge of your life and your evolution.
Hmm.
And at that edge, there is often a part of you that wants to do something, whatever that something is for you. And then there's often another part that believes you can't or shouldn't or mustn't, which is the safety and the fear. And so we have this conflict, and that conflict is a mirror in for what's going on inside of you. So if I was to ask you, what's the internal battle about? Would you be able to answer, or is that something you need to think about for a while?
Need to think about it for a while.
You don't have to bring it up to the surface right now. It may be something, it may be what we've already talked about, that battle with, I don't want to go here, I don't want this, I've had enough, or and and you may find there's a certain resolution to that. But there may be things that are still pushed down that haven't quite come up to the surface, and they will when it can often be around what is it you want at this point in your life? What is it that you truly want? You've been suppressing and responsible for other people's stuff for such a long time. But what about you? And who are you? And who do you want to be and become?
Yeah, I think that's where I need to focus my time and attention. I think that will be super healing. I think I've been so much for everyone else. And I have thought that who, like this awakening and whatever we're talking about today in the world and that, and it's like, who are you? Show up as your authentic self. And I have thought that, like, who are you? What did you come here for? You know, just yeah. Yeah.
And it's challenging the pattern that you're in, always being responsible for others. What if you weren't? What if you said, okay, I'm just going to do for a year, you know, things that are not related to other people or not related to what they want, but things that help my growth and evolution. And it's breaking out of the pattern. So just think and ponder on those conflicts that may be coming up in you.
I like that. I like leaving this with something to consider and think about. And it's not foreign, but it's going to really, I'm going to have to do some thinking about this.
Well, maybe less thinking and more sitting with, what's this battle here? What's this going on inside of me?
Right. And then I'll watch my sinuses clear up and
Yeah, it's just bringing attention to all of these things, because I always think when you've got a lot of phlegm and sinuses and it's all up in your head, there's such a lot going on in your head. It's probably why you were drawn towards meditation and to dropping, there's the challenge to drop into your body.
oh, how wonderful. It's all connected.
We've covered such a lot in this in our conversation today. Is this gone any way to help you make those connections with your thyroid? And
For sure. I've gotten clarification on things I kind of thought, oh, I wonder if this, had anything to do with whatever. And I feel very certain in myself. It's interesting. My voice hasn't been shown yet. The way I want to show up, the way I want to speak. And it's not that every time I speak, I'm not speaking my truth or whatever. That's not what I'm talking about. It's something bigger. Yeah. And I didn't know that till we met here. So that's interesting to me.
well, there's a lot to process from our conversations. So I want to thank you so much for our talk today.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this, you'll find a lot more content on my Instagram account at thehealingpoint._. If you have a question you'd like to explore and are willing to take part in the podcast, you'll find all the information you need on my website, which is www.tracystevens.org/podcast. Thanks, and see you soon.